and welcome back to another Breyer customization video. Today I will be doing a Drastic custom on the Smarty Jones mold. Not this one specifically. I don't know what happened to the original footage, but he will be my stand-in. The one I'll be using was likely someone's playhorse and is perfect for some customization. As you can see here, I drew his basic skeletal anatomy with a paint pen. This will help me cut and reposition the parts while keeping it correct. I used reference photos, and you can tell where certain bones are meant to be in this dynamic pose. I will be making an even more dynamic pose inspired by Western games like barrel racing and mounted shooting. To do this, I found some poses on Google and traced the one I liked most and thought would work with the original sculpt. I flipped the outline and fill in where I think the opposite legs would go. Now I can draw in the skeleton to map out the anatomy. Then I can cut up the photos and lay them under my sketch to see how I will do it in real life and make a plan. I'm using Photoshop, but I recommend Photopea for a free browser editor. I try and move the plastic how the joints actually move, but sometimes that's easier said than done. Once I have a plan, I mark where I will be cutting with a different color, and now we can get into it. I start off by dremeling with a thin cutting disc. As always, I'm using a respirator, eye protection, gloves, and long sleeves. It's also helpful if you have a fan to blow the smoke away. I start with the ends of the legs and work my way in. It helps to do this while the body is still intact and won't move as much. You definitely need to take your time with this part, and don't do it if you're not absolutely in the mood, because it is quite dangerous. You also don't need to do it all in the same day. I make sure to cut away any areas that will get in the way of the bending. Cutting the tail off is always so satisfying. I make sure to leave a little bit to put the wire through. I get any stubborn pieces off with some pliers. Next, I take a thin bit and get in the areas I couldn't reach. The hot plastic likes to build up on this, but I just cut it off with some scissors. I make any touch-ups with a jewelry saw, and now I can move everything. With my embossing heat gun, I move it around evenly while not getting too close. The thicker areas will need it longer. I work the opposite of how I cut, moving the body parts first while making sure to check my drawing and the photo of the real horse. I don't always stick to the plan if it's not working or I like a different angle more in person. Once I slowly bend it where I want, I give him a little baptism in ice water. I forgot to take off the ears with the Dremel, so I saw those off. I will be making them forward and alert. Next up, I'll be making the base. I'm using my Aves 2-part epoxy and some foil I can peel off once it hardens. Where the hoof connects, I make soft, but everywhere else I can use already hardened pieces that I save from other projects when I mix up too much. I make sure I get the angle right before I press it into the epoxy. To keep it from sticking, I dip it into some 70% rubbing alcohol first. Water would also work. I find that letting it sit first and get firmer helps as well. Then I go in and fill the rest of the area, which will be pretty big because of how intense this lean is going to be. Back to the horse. I drew holes where I will be putting the wire supports through. I did notice I really did not want to be in frame, and I will try and improve on that, but it gets better as this video goes, so thanks for bearing with me. I pad the big gaps with foil and hot glue. I don't fill it completely, I just add enough so I can glue it in place and it won't move while I sculpt. I put the wire all the way through the ear holes so that they are extra sturdy, since I can reach inside. I fix all the wire into place with my epoxy. And now the fun can begin. Time for sculpting. I fill in all the small gaps in the legs first so that they are stronger. I work in sections, placing down flat pieces first and smoothing them with my fingers that have been dipped in rubbing alcohol. I carve out rough shapes with the knife and silicone tools. It's so important to look at those real horse pictures and muscle diagrams when resculpting, especially on the body. I carve in skin wrinkles with a knife. I can then smooth with a soft brush and rubbing alcohol. The shoulder was a little indented from how I needed to bend it, so I will be building it up and sculpting new muscle structures. As with the chest, the groin will need a lot of filling. I also have to build up this hindquarter, but for now I will just fill it in and worry about the muscle once it's hardened. This sped up footage makes it seem like I do a lot at once, but really I stop after each section so I won't ruin the parts by sticking fingers in the soft epoxy. I do try and use any leftover epoxy to build up areas so they will be ready for more detailed sculpting. Now I can add the hair armature that will be the base and help me decide how it will flow. I sculpt new cheeks to connect the new neck sculpt. For the ears, I make a teardrop shape and place them over the wire. I then shape them and cut away any excess until it's looking how I want. After that hardens, I add a little to the inside to cover the wire. Then I do the other cheek. I go back around and build up any areas and smooth transitions until it's looking good. I decided to add some mud kicking up off the base, so I epoxied some wire to it, let it harden, and then added the mud. I've also been adding to the base whenever I have leftovers from sculpting. Before I do the mane and tail, I decided to prime everything. Partly because it was so crazy and distracting looking, but also because I knew I need to do a lot of sanding, and it would be easier without all that hair in the way. So I used my Duplicolor sandable primer. And now for the dreaded sanding. I mark where I need to sand with a marker and get to it. I use 80 grit for really bad areas, all the way down to 400 to get it smooth. I also mark the areas as I go down grit size since it's harder to tell what I have and haven't done. I'm sure she will need more sanding, but for now it's time for the mane and tail. I bend and cut the wire until it's flowing how I like. Then I pat it up with some hot glue and masking tape. I'll admit I may have made it a little thick in some areas, so definitely watch out for that, since the epoxy will make it thicker. I start at the base and add my noodles. I smooth them together and add hair detail with a knife. I also give it more depth and flow by carving in deep lines with the silicone tool. I make sure to have a lot of fun with it. Hair is my favorite thing to sculpt. support the wire with some tape and add the forelock. While I was doing that, I wasn't really digging those ears. They didn't have that recognizable shape on the insides. I redid them off camera. I still used the same technique, I just really made sure the shape was right this time. I also decided it would be stronger and less bulky to drill in a hole for the fetlock wire. While I was at it, I made sure to put in my air hole, so he won't suffer this fate. So I finished up all that and moved on to the tail, which I will quickly skim past. You will see why in a minute. I hit all that again with the primer. Now I can airbrush. I decided on a strawberry roan. This is when you get little white hairs on a chestnut base. This is my first time using this new airbrush on a model. I got a new Iwata Eclipse. I like my old Azteca, but it's so hard to clean, and it doesn't go as small as this one. It will definitely take some getting used to, but so far I like it. You might notice I'm speeding through this pretty quick, and that can only mean one thing. Disaster. While this made for a good airbrush practice run, she fell over and smeared the paint. And then I noticed cracking in the support leg and the tail. So I just cut my losses and decided to start over. I gave her a nice purple power bath, making sure to plug the air hole with hot glue. And after some scrubbing, here's how she's looking. These things are bound to happen when customizing, and it's okay to take a step back and even work on something else. But now let's see the damage. Yeah, that tail was just not strong enough. I think there just wasn't enough epoxy where the new tail connected with the original. Now for the leg. Oof. Yeah, it just wasn't strong enough for the weight. It might have been alright if I'd only bent it and not cut and sculpted it. But don't worry, reinforcing wire to the rescue. I line the pieces up and mark how they fit together. Then I drill in both sides in the center, making sure that they line up. I make sure it fits and bend it into place. To make sure that they will never come apart, I'm using JB Weld, a 2-part epoxy glue. It smells a little fishy, but it doesn't mess around. I tape them into place while it dries. I also add in the new tail support with it. I fill in any little pinholes and smooth the leg. Now I can redo the tail. Which honestly, the universe might have been telling me something here, because looking back, that first tail was not it. Like with the mane, I start at the bottom and work up. For the strands that come off, I wrap wire up and cover it with a noodle. This will give it strength and keep it in place. the leg fixed, it made her sit at a slightly different angle. To fix this, I just drill out the original slot and stick the foot in some fresh epoxy again. And with all that and a fresh coat of primer, now I can actually airbrush. And it will be extra good because I've already done it. I give her a light base with this clay color. I'm really testing this new tail holding her like this. Following the sculptural details, I add dark shading. I wouldn't normally do this extreme of a contrast, but I have to here if I want it to have a chance of showing up under all the roning. I add the dark skin on the face and the underside. Now I can add the roning. With white, I hold the brush far away and give light taps. I go slowly and build it up. I can always add more, but I can't take it back. I try not to overdo it since I will be adding more by hand. I spray her off camera with my Mr. Super Clear Matte Spray. And now I can use my Prisma-colored pencil to add the hair by hand. You have to be a little bit crazy to do it this way, but I find it pretty soothing. I just have to keep in mind the hair direction. As I go, I use a blending stump to make it less crisp and more natural. I add a rough idea of where I want the hair direction, and then fill it all in. The white on roans doesn't go on their face or legs, so it's important to keep that in mind. I sealed a few times in between to make sure I wasn't rubbing it off as I worked on it. Next I take white pastel and shade everything with an eyeshadow brush. I use a camera lens duster to blow off any extra powder. This prevents spit from getting all over my horse, and me from getting lightheaded. For the eyes, I fill in the corners with white. Then I add in the black. I definitely want her looking forward, very alert and focused on where she's turning. I add a ring of dark brown and blend in some cream while it's still wet. Once that dried, I add little lines of dark brown back over and a bit of highlight in between. I add the tiniest little eye shine. For the legs, I did give her some white socks. I did a few coats of thinned golden white acrylic paint. This means the back hooves will be beige. The front hooves will be black. First, I blend down a ring of white from the top. Next, I dry brush more white, making sure to tap off the excess first. Then I go back with some darker shades going the opposite direction. I highlight the inside of the hooves and add some veining over top. I touch up with a little more dry brushing and finish it up with another white ring on the tops. I shade the tops of the markings and the little star I gave her. Once it was all dry, I glossed the hooves and the eyes with my Liquitex gloss varnish. I decided to put pink in her flared nostrils, so I blend in a white layer so that the color will show up. Then I add pink, going darker in the center. With my paint pen, I draw on the chestnuts. The legs are unnaturally white, so I shade them with a little bit of brown pastel. For the base, I primed it off camera and do a cover with dark brown. I blend in a beige paint. Once that was dry, I give it a wash with some very watered down black and dab it with a paper towel. I dry brush on the original brown and some light highlights. sealed everything off camera with a few coats of Testors spray lacquer, and we're all done. Time for the final result. This definitely wasn't the easiest project, but it was totally worth it. She really looks like she's whipping around that barrel. Thank you for watching, I hope you learned something. Make sure to boop that like button and subscribe for more projects.